Rest.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording this on the 24th of November. And what I'm going to be covering are the statistics, some of the epidemiology of SARS-CoV-2, monkeypox, influenza, and cancer. Okay, so this will be my updates. So let me share my screen here and we'll go into the details here. All right, let's start with monkeypox first. So in the world, for the world cumulative numbers, we are seeing slight increases in monkeypox worldwide. We're at about 79,000 cases. And if you look at the curve for the United States, so I'll turn off the world curve, you can see that we are increasing, but we are just below the 30,000 mark. So we're at 28,599. So the acceleration of this has slowed down in terms of number of cases. And we need to, just keep in mind that this is probably gonna plateau. And I think what will happen as influenza and SARS-CoV-2 starts to ramp up again, we are probably going to see a surge in monkeypox, because the thesis that I have for this is that monkeypox is happening because of a syndrome that I call AIDS-like syndrome, a weakening of the immune system, and other opportunistic infections are taking hold. Now, let's go to the SARS-CoV-2 data. Now, what I want to focus on here are, yes, the world seems to be going lower in our weekly cases, all right? We're at about 9 million or so. Was it 9 million? 2 million? 2.9 million? 2.9 million, almost 3 million cases per, those are weekly cases. Deaths have plateaued out, all right, but elevated compared to the first wave. First wave meaning first wave in the United States. So so it's like right here. But this big hump here, if you want to consider that the first wave, then it's below the first wave. So it really depends on when what point in time you're picking the first wave. But and what is interesting here is the weekly doses of SARS-CoV-2 for the vaccine have been going down. Right? So let's just keep in mind with what's going on with that dynamic there. Now, what I want to show is my worry about Asia. Japan is spiking up. You can see that their weekly cases are at about 590,000 weekly. Deaths have spiked up a little bit, but also spikes in vaccinations. Korea, there's also a spiking that's taking place in Korea. Deaths spiked, and where the spike is, vaccinations are lower, so it's a little bit different dynamic. In the United States, everything seems to be at kind of like a steady state. Now, what is interesting is that when you look at the first wave, this is why I keep on talking about the first wave. The first wave in the United States here, this is around 310,000 weekly. The first wave, it was 209. In the reality of the situation in the United States, we are worse off now than we were in terms of number of cases than we were in the first wave. Now, in terms of deaths, the first wave was much higher. Now the deaths are about 2,000, about 2,500 per week, while we were, at 15,000 per week, weekly averages. But we've also had a spike in additional vaccines, so keep that in mind. I suspect that we're going to start seeing a blip up. Now, I've been talking to an individual in Europe, and they're saying that in Europe, things are starting to ramp up, but we're not hearing it in the news. Now, when I see the weekly cases, now you got to remember, this is going to be a lag because of the, it's weekly. But Europe, or Germany at least, is going down. Cases for deaths are somewhat elevated, almost at the same level as the first wave in Germany. But they've had a blip up in number of doses. So keep a lookout on what's going on in Germany. France seems to have plateaued. Taiwan seems to have peaked and then now going back down. Deaths started to come back, a weekly deaths at about almost 500. Now, Italy was one of those hotspots back in the early days. Well, it's plateaued out, but much higher than the first wave. So number of cases are to watch out for Italy. China has recently been getting spikes. All right, so their vaccination program is somewhat muted, and they're getting these spikes. I'm not saying there's a correlation. What I'm just saying is you got to pay attention to some of these regions. I think are going to start spiking up. Definitely in Asia. I suspect that we're going to start seeing another wave in Europe. The United Kingdom, there was some talk with this individual I was talking to in the news, local news, that the United Kingdom is having problems. But the weekly cases are relatively muted for SARS-CoV-2. So watch out. I think that there's going to be, you possibly might see spikes in the UK, Italy, and somewhere in Germany or France region. Now, that's SARS-CoV-2. Now, what about, let's see, what about cancers? All right, this is number of cancers in the United States. Okay, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time explaining this, and I'm going to show another set of data that shows proof of my hypothesis that cancers are going up and that they're related to SARS-CoV-2. So this data set here, and I'll have these in the description, but you can easily go to the CDC cancer statistics and see the data visualization. But what you'll see here is the annual rates of new cancers from 1999 to 2019. Now this is annual number, rates per 100,000. So roughly, we peaked at about 500 per 100,000 had new cancers. And then what was going on, the annual number of new cancers in 1990. So these are like what we call incidences. So from 1999 to 2019, you have somewhat of a steady decline. All right. Some of this is because of, better treatment. Some of it is better screening, but it was going down, right? It was, peaked at 500, and then pre-COVID, it was 438. Okay, so there was a decline. So we had incidences of let's say new cancers of 1,304,000 in 1999, and in let me rephrase this. The age-adjusted rate of new cancers was all right. So let me do this again. The 481 per 100,000. Okay, you have a growing population, and as you have a growing population, you're going to have more new cancers. So it's important to understand per capita. So we were at 481.2 per 100,000, and then we were going down to 438.6 per 100,000 people. All right. So there's a steady decline. the point here is there was a steady decline for about 10 years, which is a good thing for all cancers. Now, that doesn't mean that all cancers had a steady decline. It just means that in the aggregate, all the cancers had a steady decline in the aggregate, all cancers. But individual cancers may have gone up, others may have gone down lower, and then you average it all out per capita. Now, in terms of case count, so this is per capita, right? And this is case count. The case count was elevating, all right, from 1.3 million to 1.75 million. All right. But the number of the per capita was actually going down. So that's an important feature here to understand. Now, region-wise, regions that had the highest level of cancers per 100,000, are like New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, some of the industrial states, the Florida, Washington, Oregon. All right, so we have that sort of thing going on. Now, what is interesting is that was in 1999. So we can play this. Let me see if I can get this moving here. And you can see this is changing over the years for the 10-year mark. Hopefully you can see this. And so as we get to the end, the hotspots from 1999 were that. The hotspots for 2019 were Iowa and Kentucky. And then incidences were actually going down, or total case count was going down in these other states that were very high 10 years prior. Okay, so that is the data visualization. Now, what I want to do is now go and switch to influenza. Now, with the influenza chart here, this is cumulative rate of laboratory confirmed influenza hospitalizations. Okay, and it's each color here is a different season. The 2015, 16 season, 2016, 17 season, all the way to the current. This is the current curve, all right? The worst one that we had was in 2017, 2018. We are way above in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the influenza season for hospitalizations that have been confirmed than prior years, much higher. And the last chart I did was, I think, just the first 3. It was the first 3 weeks, the last video I did. And I was predicting that this was going to trend much higher than the 2017-28 season, and it is happening. So this is why I keep on, I think part of the reason why this is happening is we have a weakened immune system. This is what I call the AIDS-like syndrome. That SARS-CoV-2 and or the poke led to a weakening of the immune system where we're not able to fight the infections that we would normally be able to fight. So we have to keep a lookout on, that influenza can be a major problem in the community in terms of hospitalizations. And the data is starting to prove that out. Now, we're approaching, so we're at about 10 per 100,000. And we have a population of 330 million. So, you just have to, calculate that out, and you're going to talk about how many hospitalizations that are predicted here. So let's say we have, right now we have, get the calculator here. Okay, so we have 330 million people, right? And the per capita is 100,000. So there's 3.3 times the 10. So wait, I'm doing this wrong. There's 10 per 100,000. It's 10 per 100,000, 330 million divided by 100,000. Considering times 10. So right now we have about 33,000 people that are hospitalized from influenza, or was hospitalized from influenza during these weeks. Now, if we take this number here, all right, let's say we start to peter off at the point that we had in 2017, 2018, at 100. So we have 330 million people, right? Divided by 100,000 for the cabinets, and then you times that by 100. So we would have about 330,000 people that would have been hospitalized over that whole period of time. Some of them, very severe, some of them may not be. But the point that I'm making here is that there's going to be a lot of hospitalizations with this influenza. What is different than what we had in 2017 and 2018 is the fact that we have a weakened immune system, and we have a stressed healthcare system. So all these things are coming to a head in what I call a post-COVID era. So influenza 100% is going to be a problem in the United States. Same thing with RSV. I don't have a chart to show you, but RSV is a respiratory virus for children. And it seems to be also ticking up in the elderly population, is starting to become a problem. So this season, this influenza season, is a COVID, influenza, RSV, and monkeypox season. This lends itself to what I've been predicting for a while now with the AIDS-like syndrome. This is opportunistic infections, opportunistic pathogens will take hold in the body because of a weakened immune system. And I think that weakened immune system is through natural infection of SARS-CoV-2 and or the poke. So that is the influenza chart. Now there are some, let's see here, I can get to it. All right, there's some data here that I want to compare between 2019, and this is for the United States, number of new cancers and deaths, and 2022, all right? If you look at the 2022 data, and you take this number for both genders, both sexes, right? And you take this number and compare it to this number, which is 2019 data of all the cancers. What you will get is about a 9% increase in the number of cancers. So round it to about 10%. It's just under 10%. It's about 9%. All right. But the thing is that you take a look at also the number of deaths. For 2022, 60 in 2022 isn't done yet. 609, 360. So the number of deaths for the estimated deaths, and 2019, and it's 606,880. So we're looking at less than 1% change in deaths. Now, but it is going up, right? Now, if you take a look at, and I think this is very worrisome here, the genital system cancers, this is uterine, cervix, uterine, ovarian, ovary, testes, prostate, so that region, right? And if you take that number, 295,290, 295,290, right? 295, right? And you compare it to the 2022, which is right here, the 395 divided by 295, and you're talking about almost a 34% increase in cancers in that region. So, some cancers have gone down, some have gone up. But my point here, especially the leukemias, like let's say with the leukemias, this is 2022, right? The leukemias are at 60,000, right? And you compare it to the number of leukemias that were in 2019, right? And that's at 61,780. So here's a perfect example where it actually went down, right? This is 2019 data. So the leukemias actually went down overall. But if we take a look at, let's say, the individual ones, say ALL, that's 6,000, 6.6. So 6,000, 6.6. Let's see here. ALL actually went up, right? It was 6.6. Now it's 5 point, it was at 5.9. So that went up. CLL, 20.7. 20.7, so it slightly went down. CLL went slightly down. Now, what is interesting about acute LL is that you can have something called kind of like a pre-LL syndrome, where the LLL hasn't reached the threshold to be considered an ALL, but you can be kind of like in a pre-ALL state. I think this is an important point to kind of to keep in mind when it's coming to with leukemias. Now, AML this is 2022 data, 20,000. Okay, so let's take a look at what was in 19. In 19, it was 21,000. So AML actually went down slightly. CML, so that was at 8.9, 2019, 8.9. And what do we got here for 8.8? 8.8 it is now, and it used to be at 8.9. So it's, it went down a little. It went down a little bit, but it's roughly the same. Other leukemias, all right, 4.6 or almost 4.7. 2019, 4.7. Let's take a look. 4.9. So others are actually up a little bit. All right. So it's the point I'm making here is that there's an overall increase of just under 10%. And in some cases, it's going down in some cancers. In other cases, it's actually going up. Let's say digestive, for example, 2022, 343,000. In 2019 was 328,000. So it actually, digestive went up. All right. And I've been concerned about the colon area. So let's take a what's going on with the data there. So 2022 was 151,000. You take a look at it in the colon. Maybe they compiled this a little differently in this chart. So 2019, so we got to make sure we're comparing. So this is these two together. So colon was at 106 and rectum was at 44. So 106 and 44 in 2019, 101 and 44. So rectum is roughly the same and slightly increase in colon cancer. So this is the worry that I've been saying. This is like, if you take a look at some of these cancers in different regions, especially high mitotic, maybe maybe we're starting to see the beginnings of a post-COVID cancer epidemic. The theory is that there is some sort of perturbance in the genome. Now, it could be through integration, methylation, or acetylation issues. But the bottom line is it's turning off tumor suppressor genes, disrupting them, and turning on or promoting oncogenes. Pancreatic cancers. So this is 2019 data, 56.7. And in 2022, with the pancreas, there's a pancreas, 62,000. So 62,000 in 2022. And in 2019, pancreas was at 56. So pancreatitis, or, an inflammation of that can lead to other cancers. And we know that SARS-CoV-2 disrupts the pancreas. So, that right there is some more evidence of an increase in cancers. All right. But we need more data, right? We need to see the 2023 data and see if we're starting to see an increase in those cases. But the thought process here is that you can, in the description, you can read through this, But the thought process here is that we have some dynamics in the post-COVID era that we need to keep in mind. Those are cancer incidence or in cancer prevalence will go up. And this AIDS-like syndrome, where it's a downregulation of the immune system, will lead to opportunistic infections and the inability to be able to check cancer at the door. So a subset of these cancers are because of the AIDS-like syndrome. And another subset of these cancers are just genetic instability that's taking place, either because of integration into the chromosomes or acetylation and methylation that shouldn't be taking place for certain genes. Then you have the autoimmune disorders that are tied to SARS-CoV-2 and the poke, or the poke. And you have this overreaction of the immune system and all of the manifestations of that, like Guillain-Barré syndrome or Epstein-Barr or Graves' disease, Hashimoto's. There's a lot of things that can happen that the antibodies are produced in such a way that they attack self. That's a concern. And these things that are happening, you have the cancer, the AIDS-like syndrome, the autoimmune disease, and these opportunistic infections that are starting to take hold because of AIDS-like syndrome. You'll see these flare-ups of these other diseases like RSV or monkeypox or influenza. Now, that's why I keep on saying that we're beyond this the crisis of SARS-CoV-2 and, you know, the pandemic, right? And so that we kept on using the term endemic, right? But we needed to broaden our thought process here and go, it's not just going into the endemic phase, but we're going into a post-COVID era. And the post-COVID era, in terms of the medicine and the science of this, is there's going to be a lot of different systems that are going to be affected. It's not just a respiratory infection. It's not just a blood clotting issue. It's not just an inflammatory, you know, problem or a cytokine response problem. But you're starting to see other diseases that are starting to manifest itself because they were in this post-COVID era. And there are different reasons why. For some patients, it's going to be genomic instability, turning on or off certain genes or disrupting them in such a way that leads to cancer. All right. Perhaps what's happening is that we are having a shutting down of, or a downregulation of our checking system, our DNA checking system, when that is, let's say, methylated in such a way that that checking system doesn't work and it leads to cancer. All right. So that is kind of the genomic instability category. Then you have the AIDS-like syndrome category, where you have a downregulation of your immune system. Now, part of that downregulation of the immune system is maybe you have too much Treg, maybe a shutting down or dysfunctioning of CD4 positive cells. But the bottom line is that we have a lot of things that can happen when you have an immune system that is not working correctly. Now, maybe part of this AIDS-like syndrome is the shutting down or the dysfunctioning of the recombination of your JD, you know, V type recombination that takes place for your antibodies, right? As it's trying to find a solution to a certain antigen, right? So there's problems with that. And then because of AIDS-like syndrome, these opportunistic infections start to take hold. And a whole new dynamic. When other diseases start to ramp up, then they mutate and they cause other problems. So we got to think in terms of post-COVID, a post-COVID era. All right. So the medical establishment needs to think of it in those terms. You know, it's like, okay, we're moving into a new phase and we're moving into a new era of clinical presentation. Long COVID is a perfect example. And there's probably different reasons why long COVID is happening. One is probably you're not clearing the infection. It's probably hiding in reservoirs, like in adipose tissue, and in liver, and in the colon, you know. Probably also in, you know, in upstream cells that are in the bone marrow. So you have that dynamic that's going on. So in long COVID, part of it could also be the manifestation of a severe infection to the point where the patient doesn't get back to normal. Maybe they have problems with their parasympathetic nervous system and the heart isn't functioning correctly. Myocarditis or restrictive lung disease because of the severe infection they had with SARS-CoV-2. And the restrictive lung disease, some of them had moderate case of SARS-CoV-2 and not a severe case of SARS-CoV-2. So there's these manifestations, amyloidosis in the brain and in other organs, the kidney and the liver, right? These things we're going to start seeing in the clinic that are part of the echo of SARS-CoV-2, part of the echo of how we were treating SARS-CoV-2, aka the poke. So you know, we as physicians need to have in the mindset, it's not just the virus, but the echo of the virus. the post-COVID era. That's what I wanted to hit home on top of saying that influenza cases and for hospitalizations are at a all-time high since 2015. So pay attention to what's going on with this post-COVID era. And because of the genomic instability, through integration of pieces of this of SARS-CoV-2, or the integration of pieces of the coded vaccines, there's perturbations that take place and can integrate in and disrupt. But on top of that, you can have a change in your acetylation and methylation of your genes. The epigenetics can change. And in those cases, what will happen is that you're turning on or turning off certain genes. And in terms of cancer, when those genes are, if it's a tumor suppressor and it didn't have integrated nucleotides from, some sort of reverse transcription, but it's the spike causes some sort of downstream effect that actually acetylates or methylates a certain region, you're having things that are being turned on or turned off that shouldn't be. And what will lead to cancers or lead to other diseases. All right. But if we can map out what is going on with the acetylation and the methylation, especially with the cancers, that is a far better problem to solve than the problem of trying to solve a nucleotide integration. Because once the nucleotide integration is in, you can't get it out. But you can undo it a methylation, right? Or undo an acetylation that should not be taking place. So I put in terms of hard problem and soft problem. The soft problem is trying to solve SARS-CoV-2 with the clotting. That's an easy problem. Even though it is a problem, there's a solution to that. All right. There are means to slow that down and mitigate it. When you have integration, that is very hard to mitigate. So that's the hard problem. Now there's kind of an intermediate problem, pseudo hard problem. That intermediate problem. That intermediate problem would be the acetylation and methylation of genes that should not be happening because of the POC and SARS-CoV-2. All right. So keep that in mind. We're in a post-COVID era, and that cases of cancers are going to go up. Now, there's going to be some because of people were not doing their treatment. Some people weren't doing their screening, and you have those cases going up. But there are quite a few cases of cancers that are going to be popping up because of this hard or medium problem that I'm talking about. And when it's dealing with the disruption of the integrity of the chromosomes and the integrity of the genes. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what is going on as we transition into this post-COVID era. All right. I find it odd, I'm bringing up these cancer problems and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you start hearing Dr. Campbell talk about it. Thanks, Dr. Campbell, for being late to the game again. All right. I'm pretty sure he didn't say anything about acetylation and methylation. All right. So thank you for listening, and please support my store by going to the store, thus-studio-reykjavik.com, and purchasing the health products that I offer. I offer nano silvers, C60, supplements, all natural deodorants. And so you can get a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or a 6 ounce, or I'm sorry, a 2 ounce, 4 ounce, or 8 ounce of C60 in avocado or in coconut. You can get the 2 ounce, which has the dropper in it, for $60. All right, in coconut and in avocado. So you can get that on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All the links are in the description. And what you should do is start paying attention to what I've been saying about this anti-aging protocol. What the beauty of the anti-aging protocol is that it's brings your immune system up. It slows down aging. You have more energy. It's tied to increasing the ATP. It's tied to improving your mitochondrial health. It's bringing down inflammation, neutralizing pathogens, and there's a compound effect when you do this on a regular basis. You actually are healing your body and getting stronger. All right. That's what I've been doing for years. And these are the products that I offer on my store. So you can duplicate things that I'm doing. And you can also customize it for your particular needs. So please go to the store, get the C60. That is a strong antioxidant. Get the nano silver gels and liquids that will help to neutralize pathogens. I have lozenges and soaps that use the nano silver. So that's great for the flu season that we're going into. I have multivitamins on the store. I also have 2 very good probiotics. I have a powdered one and a capsule version. And the nano silver gel, when you not only is the nano silver gel great for putting it on your hands and around your mouth, and it stays and neutralizes pathogens for 5 hours. What you can do for skincare is put it on your face at night, keep it on your face while you sleep. And after about 7 days, you'll notice that your skin is more rejuvenated, it's clearer, it's tighter. It actually has your skin's tighter. So try that. But better yet, if you use my skincare anti-aging box, I have 2. I have a beginner's one and an advanced one. In the beginner's box, you take the collagen that I sell and the vitamin C and the nano silver gel. Do that every day, and you will start to improve your skin. This is kind of like what you're doing is you're rebuilding internally the structure of your skin, the collagen. And the vitamin C helps with that. And you drink water, probably around 32 to 64 ounces of water per day. And you'll notice that, over 1 month, a huge improvement in your skin, and the age of the skin will be improved. So the appearance of the age of the skin will improve. In the advanced box, I have all that, the gel, the collagen, and the C60, but I also put in the advanced box resveratrol, which is known to help the senescent cells and a strong antioxidant. And I also have the C60. And in the C60, that is a strong antioxidant, which helps with this whole rejuvenation of the skin. So because it's neutralizing those reactive oxygen species. And by doing that, you improve your mitochondrial health, and then you've got more ATP, you have more energy, there's more regeneration that's taking place in your body. That's the whole concept of this anti-aging protocol. So go to the store, help support my work. In addition, you can go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, And you can also donate through Stripe or PayPal, or you can help support the channel by being a subscriber to Patreon, or you can donate through Buy Me a Coffee. But thank you for your support throughout this crisis. I've informed the public on many groundbreaking concepts that have been stolen by many people, because they're not original thinkers. And, I've been trying to navigate you through this, through informing what is going on at all these different pillars, the scientific pillar, the political pillar, the geopolitical pillar, our constitutional rights issues and all this. I've tried to navigate you through this and give you a solution to the problem. And if you pay attention to what I've been saying for the last 3 years, it's about reducing inflammation, neutralizing pathogens, and boosting up your immune system. If you do that, you have a better chance. But I want to make it very clear to the public. Everyone is at risk of having some sort of negative externality during the post-COVID era. What I mean by that is that the virus and the poke cause negative externalities in chromosome instability. There is a few reasons, few things that are happening of why that is, but the bottom line is this: everyone's risk factors for cancer and other diseases have gone up. So if you didn't have any risk factor for cancer, you now have a risk factor for cancer. And so now it's the time to, because it's near the end of the year, now is the time to evaluate your lifestyle and what you're going to do to try to mitigate the higher risk factor that you have. All right. And it's going to be tied into bringing down that inflammatory response, that chronic inflammatory response, boosting up your mitochondrial health, reducing reactive oxygen species by taking strong antioxidants, and neutralizing pathogens. That's the solution. All right. And that will help build up your immune system. And now you have a fighting chance. But everyone's risk factors have increased. Now, someone might say, I've never had SARS-CoV-2 and never took the poke. Well, you're a lucky individual. But because we're in the endemic phase, in the post-COVID era, you're eventually going to get SARS-CoV-2. And chances are you probably already had SARS-CoV-2 and it was asymptomatic. So unless you tested every week, you wouldn't know if you had SARS-CoV-2 or not, all right, for the antigen. Now, there's going to be memory because you built up antibodies. So if someone took the test and they don't have any antibodies, no antigen, then they're truly probably did not get SARS-CoV-2. But very few people can say that. So chances are you had SARS-CoV-2 already. But if you've been the lucky individual that hasn't, you will get SARS-CoV-2. So risk factors for everybody are going to increase. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to go from 1 to 100 and you have 100% cancer. No, your risk factors based on your lifestyle, based on your own genetics, based on your own age group, your cohort group, that will determine how much of a risk factor bump you have. So roughly speaking, you probably are going to start seeing in the SARS-CoV-2 realm around a 25% increase in risk factors. Hopefully we find a solution, all right? But the best thing that you can do right now is to take charge of your own health. That is proper exercise, proper diet, proper sleep pattern, proper mental, health, and proper diet, exercise, supplementation. There's a lot of things that you can do to try to mitigate the problem. All right. So pay attention to what I'm doing and you'll probably fare okay. All right. So thank you for listening. Please support my store. by going and buying the products that I offer at the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.